After searching online and going to the hobby shops, I realized I was going to have to design my own suspended train. Hello, welcome to Sisyphus Crane and Rigging. This is Mr. Bix. A suspended train, like a model train in N scale, but dangling, is the goal, and it is a challenge. The original Kineticon had an N scale train in it. My first plan, when I designed that, when I was thinking through the design of the original Kineticon, was to put a small car on a track, raised on one side and on the deck on the other side, and I made little cars that would either be uncontrolled or radio controlled before I got out of high school. Here's one I made in about 1977. It's pretty rough, but it featured a real leather top. It used a battery, and it would run across the floor unguided, kind of wobbly. The wheels looked like clown wheels rolling up and down because they weren't perfectly centered. I just bent this out of galvanized wire and soldered it up. It was a fun way to build things because it's very fast. The thing looks like rusty. It looks like one of those art toys, desktop or mantle-top ornaments you see in tacky art shops. It looks like one of the old trucks in the movie Sorcerer, which I recently watched. Well, not quite, I guess. The car would be battery-powered, and it would roll around on a set of tracks with flanges, right, to keep it on there. And then it would stop every time in a little garage, which would have a set of contacts in the floor. So as it came into the garage, it would make contact with those contacts and charge it up. I came up with all that in 1977, 78. And so I realized the car idea was probably too tricky, and the batteries could run down. The car just might end up staying in the garage during times of heavy use, or worse, get stranded on the loop somewhere with, no way to get a charge to it. Yikes, bricked right there on the track, just like EVs of today. There was range anxiety. So I took the prudent course and put a train in there. It worked. It worked out great, except for a lot of times, when someone would say, "I love that coin-operated train you made," or "Let's put a quarter in that thing and make that train go." Little kids asking their parents, "Can I see the train, please?" Ugh. On this one, I'm juggling again. I want a unique train or something going around like the first Kineticon had, preferably something I made myself. And like the first one, I have a cool idea that is probably too hard to figure out timing-wise. I mean, it'll take a long time to figure it out. Maybe someday I'll plan to do this. It would be a sort of a maglev shuttle or a train, something like that, without an inner rail like the models that you can buy, but fully free-floating in a track. Imagine a hot dog in a channel, and it would just move along, maybe by some kind of electromagnetism or something. I think it could be done, but developing that might take the entire time budget for this whole project. So how about something a little easier, a little less time consuming? That's when I decided to try a suspended train. Oh sure, like that's going to go quickly. Lol. Nowadays you can just say lol. If you look up suspended trains, you'll find some examples, mostly novelty stuff. I mean, there are some real ones out there. Basically monorails hanging, I guess. Originally I thought making an N-scale train look like a monorail would be good. In fact, I still like that idea, but there are some major disadvantages. You'll always have dual rails, two rails, just like the model train has, Even if you hide all the ties and shave off the sides of them, make it look like a solid block on which it runs, and then build, redesign your engine so that it hangs down from the sides. But that makes it's wide, and it's sort of ungainly looking if it's got to go around the curves, which I don't like that. There are parts of the suspended train I don't like either, but at least it's a suspended train. Building one makes the shortcomings go away, so to speak. I mean, it's just a cool idea, and if I can get it to work, it may be sort of ungainly in some ways, I think, but then again, it should be pretty neat. So that's the thought right now. There are problems with suspended trains, that I can see coming up. How do you make the wheels work around the turn. The wider the wheelbase is on the trolley part, the more difficult it is to get them to go around a turn unless you pivot one wheel, and that gets pretty complicated. Another problem that it's going to have is how do you couple the electric power to it? It's a biggie. It has to be able to swing freely and yet still maintain good electrical connections, just like, when the two rails on a model train take power, plus and minus on the two rails. That's what I've got to figure out a way to couple that in with the suspended train, and it hangs on two vertical wheels that have O-rings. They're insulated, so I've got to figure that out, and I'm not at all sure how I'm going to do it. Another problem I'm going to have is it needs about 10 feet of track, 120 inches all around this thing, and that's going to be made in segments, of course, and it has to be the aluminum guide part, and below that maybe a piece of circuit board on which I can make the contacts. And those parts each need to be made independently, so I need 4 curves, a couple of offset pieces, and some shorts, and I've got to build all that, and then they've got to join together at the ends in a way that's rigid enough and strong enough that they won't sort of fall apart or be too fragile. That's a tricky problem in itself, but I think I've got something worked out, and I'm going to try it soon. And since it's a suspended train, I've got to make the pylons, the things that hold it up in suspension, some kind of trusses or bridge pieces or something. And if they're just pylons, then I'm going to need about 16 of those, and I don't want to machine those out individually. That's very time consuming. It's even hard to get them printed. That'll be really expensive. I don't know what I'm going to do there. And they've got to look cool. I can't make them too clumsy looking. So all that has to be worked out. And that's an overview of the challenge ahead. Stay tuned for part 2. I'm hoping to have my concept prototypes done, or at least some of them. And I'm working on the motorized trolley, the track segments, the design for the electrical coupling. But until then, thanks for watching. Bye.